Anson Durst, Rock of the Faith. Anson Durst is the rock on which the enemies of the Protectorate break, a bulwark to the faithful who weather tides of violence to keep blameless Menites safe. Though he has no interest in theosophical rumination occupying some of his brothers, none can question his devotion to the Paladin Creed. His humility and sense of duty are an inspiration to the soldiers he commands, each of whom feel compelled to emulate his steadfast courage. Arising from humble origins, his parents toiled among the countless farm laborers helping to keep the Protectorate fed. Durst might have gone unnoticed if not for his unusual size and strength. After drawing the attention of a veteran paladin passing through his village, Durst was recruited to the Order of the Wall at the age of 10. He endured training that has been perfected to forge youths into unyielding guardians of the faith. He took readily to combat training, but his mighty temper nearly undid him. A rage-fueled scuffle at the age of 12 resulted in him killing another boy, and that tragic event scarred Durst deeply. Shame drove him to an intense commitment to the Paladin Code. He still seeks to atone for this stain on his soul, finding solace in the discipline of his order and employing his strength to protect others. His soldier's life guarding the Protectorate's borders at the northern garrison was changed drastically by the late discovery of his Warcaster's gift. He was thrust into the role of military leader during the onset of the Signarin invasion of Sol. Durst earned an epithet, fighting as part of a force of temple flame guards and paladins to repel wave after wave of invading soldiers. As the war raged on, countless times he used his powers to prevent harm to his men. His machines advanced in tight formations along his soldiers, ready to receive blows intended for them. This tactic fast became the hallmark of Durst's approach to war, as the stalwart paladin views his men under his command to be far more valuable than the warjacks that fight alongside them. Though committed to his oath, Anson Durst is first and foremost a military asset to the Protectorate. His main desire is to stand between the faithful and their enemies, but the Great Crusade requires him to obey priests who sometimes see him as a weapon with which they crush the faithless. Ever committed to his faith and his paladin oath, he continually seeks to reconcile his duties as a warcaster with the need to remain true to his code. So this guy is very protective of the faithful, which is kind of nice. He is actually very similar to the first guy that we read, being that of Tristan Durant. So yeah, I think these guys are actually... What's weird is how much these guys are very protective of the people around them compared to some of the other, Protectorate of Menoth who are more, power hungry or just like to burn people. Like, these guys are very paladin-like, and especially if he's part of the Order of the Wall paladin, he is very, very protective. Like, his whole thing is to protect, innocent people. So, yeah, and having people like this in the Protectorate faith is actually something that makes them, not as bad compared to some of the other leaders or the pyros that are in this army pretty relevantly. So, but yeah, he is just a good dude, very big, very big shield, very blocky. But let's see his Mark III to Mark IV changes and see what he is best at. And I'm going to make the assumption he's probably really good at protecting soldiers in his army using his warjacks, but we'll find out shortly. All right, let's start right reading off his stats. So he is a speed 5, as most of these guys are. He is a medium base model, so he's a little bit bigger than the average. He has a mat of 8, makes him a melee caster. I don't think he has any ranged weapons, so not really his thing. He has a defense of 13, an arm of 18, so he's, a light or heavy jack depending on what army you play. He only has a magic of 6 and a control range of 12. So yeah, definitely not the highest of the caliber of spellcasters, but still very solid. And it looks like his abilities, he has Retaliatory Strike. So when this model is hit by a melee attack by an enemy model during your opponent's turn, he can swing back and make an attack against them as well. You can use that once per turn. Then another one, he still has Sturdy. So this model cannot be pushed because, well, of course he is from the Order of the Wall, so that actually makes sense. And one of the things he lost is Brace for Impact, so this model does not move when slammed. So I imagine because he can't be pushed, that also means that he probably can't be moved by a slam, which makes sense. So I imagine that was kind of unnecessary to have that in there. Let's read about his weapon. His weapon is recompense. That's the word. So yeah, one day I'll be able to pronounce it. So he has a mat 8, range 2, so it is a reach weapon. Power 14, which makes sense since he is very melee. He's also a weapon master, so he gets an additional die on damage die when using this particular weapon. And then its ability is Eruption of Ash. So on a direct hit, when the model is boxed by this attack, with this weapon, center a 3-inch AoE cloud template on the box model, and then it is removed from play. And then the template is a hazard that is in play for 1 round. Enemy models entering or ending their activation in the AoE suffer a POW 12 damage roll. So yes. And does that affect him? Probably. Only because, well, I suppose it would actually do something to him because, you know, he is in there, and I do not believe that he actually has immunity to fire, unfortunately. So I'm curious if there's a way to get around that. I'm not entirely sure, but being a weapon master, he's probably going to be, you know, popping a lot of people when he clocks them. So, and then let's read his feat, Bastion of Faith. Now this is a very solid feat for somebody who likes to protect his people. So it changed a little bit, but not by too much. So while in Durst's control range, warjacks in his battle group gain 4 armor. So that's pretty significant on that end. They do not get brace for impact, so they can be pushed by slams or whatever. So that's one of the downsides of that one. But what's also nice about this second part of this, when a friendly faction warrior model in Durst control range is directly hit by an attack while base to base with a warjack in Durst battle group, you can choose to have the warjack be directly hit instead, and then the warjack is automatically hit and suffers all damage and effects from the attack, and that lasts for 1 round. Now, it's kind of like Shield Guard, except it doesn't specify what kind of attack. Like, it's not a range attack, it's not a melee attack, it's not a spray attack, it's just an attack on them while they're within base to base. And it doesn't specify that they can only do it once. So these guys could soak up all sorts of damage being directed at your, you know, friendly faction warrior models, as long as they're within base to base. So if you have a couple warjacks out there, you can defend, you know, a couple different units at the same time. So yeah, this is it busted? No, I don't think it is, since you can only do it once. It's not like a spell or something like that. It's not an ability it's on all the time. But yeah, being able to just make your warjacks the center of damage with their +4 armor is actually pretty legit and will help save a lot of men. So, but let's read over his spells and see if any spells have changed. Alrighty, appears we still have a Boundless Charge. So during this activation, target friendly faction models can charge, or friendly faction model can charge without spending focus or being forced, and gains +2 speed and Pathfinder. So that's always useful to get your guys in there. Then we still have Bulwark. So while in the spellcaster's control range and base to base with 1 or more models in the battle group, the models in the spellcaster's battle group gain +2 defense and cannot be knocked down. So that's always useful. And +2 defense is always going to be nice to have, although it only works for models in the battle group for this one. So, and then we have a Cleansing Fire. This Cleansing Fire causes fire damage on a critical effect. Models hit suffer the continuous fire effect, and this is an AoE technically. So it is cost of 3, range of 8, AoE of 2, and it's a 14/8. So you can hit up to 3 models with this attack. That's always good, and critical catching them on fire, which is even nicer. And then we still have Deceleration. So while in the spellcaster's control range, friendly faction models gain +2 arm against ranged and arcane attack damage rolls. So you get the twofer on there, because there are a lot of spells that only affect ranged attacks, and then there's very few that protect against both ranged and arcane attacks. So it's always very useful to have the specifications for both of those. And then the last spell that we still have is the Hallowed Avenger. Target friendly faction cohort model gains Righteous Vengeance. If 1 or more friendly faction warrior models were destroyed or removed from play by an enemy attack while within 5 inches of a model with Righteous Vengeance during the last round, during your maintenance phase, that model can advance up to 3 inches and take a swing. So, and it's a basic attack, so it's not a swing. It's just if they want to take a range attack or a melee attack. I'm glad that has been a little bit more updated because, you know, sometimes the guys that are near somebody, you know, aren't near enough. So being able to move 3 inches and then make a basic attack is always a very useful, and shots are always going to be fired easily, and it would actually give it reasons for it. So if you got somebody who's really far away, yeah, that'll save you some trouble. So this guy is very protective of the people around him, but he is definitely a very hard hitter on his own as well. He's got spells that, you know, help protect all of his men. He's got spells that help protect his warjacks. He's just a lot of protection on here, like all sorts of different ways. Yeah, so very balanced out, I guess. He's not super one end or the other. He's not like some of the other warcasters who like to use a lot of flames and all sorts of places. Like, he still has his, you know, eruption of ash on his weapon, but he's definitely not somebody who's trying to catch a bunch of people on fire all at once. So I like him. He's pretty, just a good stalwart defender type of dude. And you want to get him in there, have him do his due, get his wax in, protect his people, keep him going, moving forward. Very front line caster right here.